Hello, everyone. This is Jonathan Little for PokerNews.com. Today we're going to be going over a hand that I played in last year's World Series of Poker. This is from a $1,500 buy-in event. The WSOP is quickly coming up this year, and I'm getting excited about it. So this is from the first level of a $1,500 event. The blinds are $2,515. We have $6,500 in chips. We are six-handed. This does happen occasionally whenever you do show up on time. I strongly suggest you always show up on time in these World Series of Poker events, especially if you are reasonably good at poker, because quite often there will be a player or two who is not too great at poker and it's not too difficult to extract a huge amount of big blinds out of their stack. I believe they do give relatively deep stacks at the beginning of $1,500 events now. And a lot of people say, well, you're playing $2,550, it doesn't really matter. But you'd be shocked how often someone at every table loses half of their stack in the first hour. And if you are there and playing well, you stand the best chance to collect that half a stack, or a whole stack in many cases. So ace-5 suited under the gun, six-handed. This would be a relatively standard fold under the gun, full ring, unless you're just trying to get frisky. If you had a really tight image, you could probably justify raising this under the gun, full ring. Even under the gun, six-handed, I would typically not raise with this hand, like if I was playing in a tough online game. But in a relatively soft World Series of Poker event, I think it's fine to get well out of line and just play pots with anything that is reasonable. The way you're going to win is by getting in spots where your opponent has what is almost certainly the second best hand in a scenario where they just cannot fold it. So I like raising here. If you wanted to develop a limping range, I would not fault you too much for limping this. If you're going to be limping with any sort of a limping range, you probably want to have something like aces, kings, and queens in it. Then also maybe suited ace-x, and then maybe a few suited connectors, maybe small pairs. But I'm not a big fan of limping. I do not do much limping. If you've watched any of my training material, there's a lot of it available at jonathanlittlepoker.com. If you checked out any of that, you know that I do not limp too often. I'm not a big fan. So anyway, we raise and then get immediately 3-bet by a loose aggressive guy in second position, the hijack seat. And then another loose aggressive player cold calls. So who knows what's going on. I went 150, they made it 375, and then we got cold called. So I expect both these players to have quite strong ranges. But again, this is a $1,500 buy-in World Series of Poker event. A lot of people do not recognize that whenever someone 3-bets, they often have a very strong range. I definitely think that the initial 3-better is going to be much stronger than the loose aggressive guy, especially given we have this guy labeled as tight aggressive. This is a pretty good flop. We have the nuts. It's always good when you flop the nuts. I'm definitely going to check, and I'm going to check raise this board almost every time. This is a spot where the initial raiser is going to continuation bet a ton, because even a hand like ace-king has a lot of equity versus pocket eights or something like that. I don't think a lot of people realize how actually strong ace-king is versus a hand like pocket eights. So imagine normally, for example, an open-ended straight draw has 8 clean outs. If you know you're against pocket eights, which of course you don't, but if you do know that, you have the aces, so you have 3 aces, you have 3 kings, and then you have the 4 5s for a straight, which gives you 10 outs. So that's actually a draw that's going to win more than a draw like an open-ended straight draw or a naked flush draw. Anyway, ace-king's a fine hand to bet in the spot if you feel like it. It's a little bit dicier 3 ways, but I would not be surprised if this tight aggressive guy doesn't bet nearly 100% of his range. So I check, tight aggressive guy does bet 650, and then loose aggressive guy decides to call. So at this point, I assume both players must have something reasonably strong. So given that they both probably have something reasonably strong, I think we want to go ahead and raise. I really don't want to let a spade come that could scare my opponents out of the pot. I don't want the board to pair. I really don't want anything to happen that could make my opponents not bet the turn. And that's somewhat likely. Notice that a 6 could slow down the action, a 5 could slow down the action, an ace could slow it down, a spade, a 4, 3, or a 2. All of those could significantly kill the action. So in this spot, I definitely want to check raise. And I would probably check raise here with my good draws, which would be something like 5-3 of spades, probably ace X of spades, probably any something with a 5 of spades, although I did raise under the gun, so I should not have any of those besides ace 5 of spades. So it's actually kind of hard to come up with a bluffing range here, but I think that we probably do want to be bluffing. I mean, we did raise under the gun. I probably would raise 5-3 suited occasionally, like once in a blue moon, but not very often. So really, it's actually pretty hard for me to have a bluff in this spot, but a lot of people won't recognize that, and if tight aggressive guy has pocket kings or something like that, he's just not going to fold. So I like check raise, and I'm fine making it somewhat big. So he made it 650, he called. I made it 1900. I think we could probably go a little bit bigger if we felt like it, but I'm a pretty big fan of keeping it reasonable. And I think 1,900 is reasonable. A lot of people are going to look at this and see it's 1,300 more and just put in their 1,300 and see what happens. So I like that play. Initial guy folds, which is unfortunate. And loose aggressive guy calls. So loose aggressive guy calls. I think he has a lot of hands like overpairs and flush draws and maybe straight draws with a hand like 5-4. He could have a hand like 7-5, decided to peel with it. He could have a hand like ace 4, ace 5, ace 3, ace 2. I mean, ace 5, I guess he probably would just go ahead and re-raise. But calling would be great with ace 5 too. I don't know. I feel like our opponents should have a pretty good range at this point, especially once the 6 comes. So notice the pot's 5,600. Should I just go ahead and go all in, or should I check, or should I bet small? And you could really go either way here. I think I like the small bets because the small bets is a way to still extract value from an overpair if your opponent is sort of blindly loose. And also, your opponent should really not put you on a 5 very often. Like, he can't put me on a 5 too often in this spot because, remember, I did raise under the gun, although we are 6-handed, and I called a 3-bet. And it's pretty hard to have a 5 in your hand. Like I said, I pretty much have to have exactly ace 5, and it probably has to be suited, so it's pretty hard for me to have the nuts in this spot. Well, effective nuts. We don't have 7-5 ever. Anyway, I bet turn small because I really want to do everything I can to keep him in with pocket 8s. I think if we jam the turn, he's going to fold a hand like pocket 8s, pocket 9s, pocket 10s. But if we bet small, he may stick around for one more bet. And to my surprise, he raises very small. So I went 1,300, he went 3,100. And at this point, what does this even mean? Like, why would you raise in this scenario if you had a straight? I think you'd really want to call because my range should be quite strong. And if you raise tiny like this, you're almost pricing me into draw with a set, which you don't really want to do because set's getting the right price to draw. So this is a kind of odd play. I think my opponent should be calling with straights. This feels really bluffy to me, honestly, but at this point, I don't think it matters so much. I mean, we only have 1,000 more on top of his raise, so I think we want to go ahead and put it in because if he is sitting here with pocket 8s, I would really hate for him to be able to fold for 1,000 more on the river or go check on the river. So we just put it in for 1,000 more. If we had something like 6,000 or maybe something like 3,000 more, I would probably try to act sad and then call to hopefully get my opponent to bluff the river. So anyway, we do get it all in, and he has 5-4. So he decided to raise and get it in with the straight on the turn, and I really don't like this play because if I have a 5, I'm obviously never folding, and he has no free roll, right? If I have a set, I'm probably not folding no matter how the hand plays anyway because I'm not trying to fold. And if I have an overpair, I'm just going to fold. If I somehow had pocket kings and decided to play it this way, I'm just going to fold on the turn because it's a horrible spot. So I think our opponent really opened himself up to not getting full value whenever I actually was beat. And here, we managed to get it all in with a free roll. Free rolls never come in. Well, they do this time. It's always nice when the free roll comes in. And just like that, we got a bunch of chips. Sometimes you're lucky. And in this hand, I was certainly lucky. But I was also lucky in that if I did have a hand, like an overpair, I probably would have been able to get off the hook. So that's going to be it for this video. Let me know what you think. I hope you enjoy these videos. If you do enjoy them, let everyone at Poker News know. You can tweet at them at Poker News. Also, let me know on Twitter at Jonathan Little. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll talk to you next week.